Welcome to the Tech Insider, where we talk to the people who can give you the insights and trends that matter to you in your business. I'm Christine Grail with Leica Geosystems.
I am delighted to have with us on our program today retired Chattanooga Police Lieutenant Darrell Whitfield. Darrell is a FAA certified remote pilot. He has 27 years of experience in law enforcement. The majority of that was in crime scene investigations, both as an investigator and as a sergeant. And then before he retired, he was a lieutenant. Daryl, I'm sure that you had a lot of different experiences while you were in crime scene investigation. Is there a particular memory or a day that stands out to you from that time?
Well, when you work crime scenes, there are a few that always stick out. None of them are good reasons, because there's an old statement that we used to say in crime scene. We would never speak it to the public within ourselves. It's like our day begins when your day ends, and that's the grim reality of it with crime scenes is that it's not a good situation. There were a couple of scenes and times that really stick out. Um, One was a dismemberment case where a someone had killed his parents and dismembered them, and it was a really big, gruesome, horrific scene. The whole story around it was really not good. And then there were a couple of officer involved situations where officers were killed that were horrific for personal reasons. Um, and then there was the terrorist attack we had in Chattanooga in 2015, where the five servicemen were killed. And one of our officers was shot and wounded. And he was out for well over a year. Those are the ones that always pop straight forward in front of my mind. Um, and unfortunately, when you're working crime scenes, the bad's what kind of comes to mind when you think of days that really stick out. But the good thing is there are thousands of little memories in between all of those bad things that I can look back and laugh on and have fun with, and think very highly of the people I used to work with, and so it kind of balances it out. But I've been kind of fortunate to where none of that stuff kind of sticks with me. I kind of let it roll off, and I mean, that's what crime scene people have to do. They have to kind of let that stuff roll off and go on to the next case. Um, it's like I remember one time I was training a new guy. We just worked a shooting and we had a bunch of shell casings and we were getting it logged into our property division. And he said, "Why are you kind of seemingly in a rush to get this stuff logged?" I said, "Well, because you never know when the next call comes in. And like 30 seconds later, we got another shooting call." And so, things like that, all those things mixed together. You have these big things that you always remember, but we remember the thousands of little things in between that were quite satisfying with the job for many, many reasons.
It's a very difficult world to be in the middle of all that and then have to turn that off every night and go home every day, depending on what shift you're working, I guess. And when you get called out to the scene, you got to be able to really switch that off and re-enter the civilian world. And then when you're called out, you have to be full on that investigator, doing the science, doing the forensics, and trying to keep that distance between who you are as a person and who you are as a professional.
Yeah, it is tough, and not everybody. I don't mean this that the crime scene people are they're superior. What I mean is just different people flow with different things, and if you don't have the ability to kind of turn that off and leave it behind, and even joke in the middle, you're not talking about the scene you're working, but maybe you're taking a little break or you're working on some stuff together, and one guy tells a little joke to another guy. It's not that you're discounting the scene. You have to be able to do that to survive in that world. Um, Crime scene people, I've always said it's not that they or we were extra special. It's just you have to have that little switch to be able to do it because not everybody can do it. And they can't, just like everybody can't do every job. Everybody's not cut out for every job, and you have to be to have some longevity in that career, which is what makes you good at it. You have to be able to kind of have those little things that you can do to kind of turn it off and forget about it. And I was very fortunate to where I think my wife would say the same. I rarely brought the crime scenes home. I may have brought home supervision or management home, with gripes about that. But the scenes, for the most part, they didn't come home with me, and I was blessed to be able to do that. And I think some of the great people that are out there doing it, they're the hardest working people out there. Crime scene people, I've always said, short of a SWAT team on an active call on a day to day basis, crime scene folks are some of the hardest working folks in law enforcement. Um, because you just don't really get all they have to go through. You get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning and you get home a day and a half later. And then you have to, shower, change, eat, and go right back to work. So the hardworking people are the greatest people. I miss them. That's why I love doing what I do, is that I still get to go hang out with my crime scene people, and law enforcement in general, just because they're the best of the best, in my opinion.
Well, and it probably helps that there has been an increasing emphasis on the science and forensics in crime scene investigation. I know that early on in your career in crime scene investigation, you actually spearheaded the development of a guide for standards, to make sure that everyone is following those best practices for evidence identification, collection, preservation. And since then, of course, there's been a much greater emphasis nationally on the need for standards. Of course, the OSAC committee was established in 2014. I think still, though, only one third of agencies involved in forensics have adopted those standards. And so I wonder if you can weigh in on whether you think we're doing enough as a nation, as individual agencies, is enough being done to emphasize the standardization of those practices.
Well, the standards, one of the big things about getting those standards is, to meet some of those standards, it takes money. It takes personnel, which takes money to pay the personnel, and it takes money to have the equipment to do it right every time. And so many departments across the nation. When we think of law enforcement, we always think of NYPD, LAPD, Dallas. We think of the big cities and the budgets. Like NYPD budget is humongous, um, but the majority of law enforcement agencies, by far across the nation, are very small. They have limited budgets. They have limited personnel. Because when you hire somebody, you got to pay their salary, pay their benefits, and provide them a car, provide them equipment. I mean, outside of the other stuff they need to meet those standards. And so, I don't want to always throw it back on money, but money is a big issue when it comes to meeting those standards. There are a lot of people really they're all trying to do the best they can with what they have. Sometimes they just don't have the equipment and the funds available to maybe take it to the next level. So I think that's probably one of the biggest issues, is just the funding, because it's not only buying equipment and buying this and that, it's, having enough people. Because when you have, two people or three people in a crime scene unit, and they're responsible for 100% of the serious crime scenes that agency has to work, and even sometimes, they go to minor scenes as well, they get wore out, they're exhausted. And so having the right amount of personnel is key, and then having the equipment that they need to do the job properly is key. It's never a lack of desire to do the right thing, in my opinion. Like I said, the crime scene people they work really hard. They really take a lot of pride in their job. They do it to the best of their ability. And so the funding, and also the training. I was very, very fortunate early on in my career, back in 2001. It was right after 9/11. As a matter of fact, I went to the National Forensic Academy, and I went to the very first session that they had. Um, and there's a 10-week training academy, and I've had a lot of the training since then. But when I went to the NFA, I was very fortunate, and since then they've had a lot of people come through. But if people aren't trained, sometimes you just don't know. I mean, a lot of the right things to do, but there's a lot of those little nuances that you need to really be trained on to know how to do properly. So training is back, falls back to the funding. You have to have training budgets and training money to train the people right, and to get the people and to have the equipment. So I think that's probably some of the biggest issues, is funding, which, kind of veers off into the training aspect, the hiring enough personnel and having the equipment needed to do it. um, it's just really tough for some of these departments to put the money they want to put into some of these areas, because the funding is not available.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it is really challenging. And obviously, it is a point of pride when an agency is able to meet those standards and adopt those standards because they're voluntary. I think it means even more that an agency is willing to do that, to put themselves through all of those hurdles and really make it happen. And I think I'm encouraged just by the fact that those standards continue to be developed, that committee exists, they are looking at what's needed. I think probably another challenge, even in developing the standards, is that technology keeps changing. Technology for everything. I'm sure that over the course of your career, you saw significant changes in technology. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, when I first started, it was, film photography, um, and it was just a lot of manual old Polaroids for this and that and the other for certain things, and there was not a lot of technology in crime scene work when I first started, and now it's just incredible where we've come, and it changes so fast. Um, when I came in our unit, I say we were using film photography, and since then we looked at digital photography in the beginning, and in the beginning the the photography was not there yet, and so we had to wait a little while until. And then now, I mean, Lord of mercy, the cameras on an iPhone take better pictures than a lot of the film photography did, depending on your camera and your film and all that. But they're taking great pictures, great photographs. So it's very quickly, especially in the last 15 years or so, it's been an explosion of technology coming out there that's available. It's like whenever we at Chattanooga, when we first bought 3D laser scanners. That was like almost like space alien type stuff. It was just the next world. It was like, wow, what is this stuff? Um, and we have seen, and it does change every day. There's always new things coming out. Not only in laser scanning and crime scene documentation, but fingerprints, being able to take somebody's fingerprint in the field and then within a few minutes getting a hit back. Which was unthought of when I first started. Um, Things like that, doing ballistics and things like that. All that technology with DNA, the way it's changed the game. Back in the day, we would have never thought of getting DNA from a fingerprint, and now that is possible now. And so it explodes, and it's almost hard to keep up with. Things are changing so much, and I'll go somewhere and somebody will talk about is something they're doing. And I'm like, what? What is that? Because since I'm not doing it and in it every day, I'm not always on top of what the latest thing out there for crime scenes are. So I always like to keep my ear to the ground. And it's just amazing how things are just progressing really, really, really fast. And it's all technology driven. The basics never go away. You still have to collect a proper DNA sample, properly and store it and document and all that so it gets to court and it can be presented in the court. But the technology this advances that has advanced over the last few years is just it makes me really interested in seeing what's coming in the next 10 years. I mean, it's going to be crazy. It seems like.
No kidding. Now, you mentioned 3D laser scanning. Can you go back? And I believe this was 2011, maybe even before that, the first time that you started working with laser scanning. What did you think the first time you saw a scene, or maybe even you scanned a scene yourself and you saw what laser scanning could do?
Well, we started looking at laser scanning with Chattanooga in 2010, late 2010. Um, I was very fortunate. It wasn't like me pushing the whole thing. I had some chiefs above me that were technology smart. They looked into things like this. They heard about it. They were going to buy some other equipment, and they went, "We don't need that. What about this?" And so we started looking into it, and the more we looked into it, I'm like, this is amazing because it was on TV. It was on a crime show on TV. They were showing Leica scanners back then, and it's like, what is this cool? Of course, they really make it look almost cooler than it is in a way sometimes. Hooray for Hollywood! But it was just really cool stuff. And then when we finally got to see a demonstration of the equipment and what a laser scanner would do, we were like, wow. And ever since 2010, when I first saw it, we actually got our purchase and we got them in our hands in like February of 2011. Every time I see a point cloud now, um, I'm like a kid in a candy store. Even if it's what I call a bad point cloud, maybe somebody captured it at low resolution or something just to get an overview. But I'm the squirrel guy in the room because I'm always looking at little points and things out of the point cloud, going wow. And we were even we actually Chattanooga Police Department, after we bought the scanners, Chattanooga has a softball complex called the Summit. It has 10 softball fields. And they're always trying to get tournaments to come in. And one thing they did, the Parks and Rec division, I went out and scanned 2 softball fields and cleaned up the data really nice. And they made a 3D hologram out of the point cloud data. And our Parks and Rec people took it around to shows to try to draw in tournaments. Well, it's like they show up at a little convention to try to draw in tournaments. And as soon as everybody hears, hey, this group over has this hologram thing, it's cool. And so people showed on you trying to grab stuff out of midair because of the hologram, and of course they can't. But it just draws that attention. But that's just one thing that point cloud data can do for you. Is just so much, and I can only imagine what the future is going to be like with it. But it was so new and cool to me. I was never a computer nerd, but I turned into a point cloud nerd on some levels because I just thought this is so cool. I mean, even without the photographs, even just looking at the straight laser rendition, you can still see what things are. I can measure between every single one of these points because we'd always go to court. There's always two things that, in preparation for a court case, the district attorney would ask: do you have a photograph showing this from this angle? And at the time you were working the scene, you're like, what does that have to do with anything? Then it would always ask, did you measure from here to here? And at the time you're working the scene, it's like, what relevance would that have been? I took 500 measurements or whatever, but you want this weird. Well, now it's like, the old saying, hold my beer, pull up the data and boom, 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 there you are. It's like, next question, because it's like amazing what is there. And when you talk about officer involved shootings and all the scrutiny that gets involved with those, now you can just lay it out. This is the scene, the laser scanner captured. This is accurate data. This is not me drawing a 2D sketch where it may be a little off, so you're not getting this is like real world, put you back there. And it's blown my mind. I mean, every point cloud I look at, I'm always looking. I was working with a group just last week, and they were trying to put some point clouds together, and um, I'm having fun putting the point clouds together because I was like, I love it because it is just so unique. It is so cool to me. I mean, cool may not be the appropriate word, but it's so relevant to what's going on with it, and with the CSI effect that we always say. At the show CSI has brought, people now think we can pull fingerprints out of midair. You can get fingerprints off of water or something crazy, just because of the show, and they've kind of created unrealistic expectations. But it is the CSI effect. Jurors now are expecting to see this type of stuff when they go to a trial. They don't want to see some hand drawn sketch of a room with a stick body laying there. They want to see these renditions. They expect it, whether it's a realistic expectation or not. They expect to see that type of stuff, and especially now. When we bought scanners back in 2010, they were a lot more expensive than they are now. The price point has really, they're still not cheap, but the price point has really come down compared to what it used to be. And jurors are expecting to see this next gen type of stuff that they haven't really seen before. And when they don't, they're kind of underwhelmed. So, I mean, I could talk forever about that part, but to me, it's exciting. I get excited about it. I've always been excited about point cloud data just because of what it shows, what it can do. And when you capture that scene in 3D for all eternity, you can go back 20 years later, as long as you still have the data, and bring it back up and show what that scene looked like when they were there at that time. And it's just amazing to me.
It's so fun to see you so excited about this. Here it is, more than 10 years after you started using it, and you're still on fire. You're still just looking for other opportunities to use it. It's one thing, though, to be excited about the potential of technology and to see it as something cool and to imagine all the things that you could do. It's another thing to actually put it into practice and to see all of the benefits of how it plays out. Was there a particular case where after you invested that money, you saw this is the real deal. This is not just something fun, it's not just something cool. Baseball fields is one thing, crime scene is another. Can you remember a particular case where it just really came down to we have the scan, this is telling the truth. Now we know without a doubt.
There were a couple of cases. It's almost every case, but there was one case that kind of pops up, and the defense attorney was asking questions about how far two lights were apart from each other. um, which was going to be into play without getting too much into the case. Was going to play into a witness's viewpoint, um, and he was going on and on about it. And even though I had shared of course, full discovery, we shared everything with them ahead of time. I don't think they realized um, that there was a light above a garage door, then there was a street light a little ways away, a couple houses down, and that distance was playing a factor. And I was like, "Mm, excuse me, I can tell you exactly how far that was." And so I was able to go in and measure from one light to the other, and seeing the defense attorney's head go is one of the best feelings you could ever have when you're testifying on the stand as a crime scene person. When you see the defense attorney when they're trying to attack something and they just go, it's like just that one simple measurement um, was just that's when a real light bulb, 'cause that was early on. That's when a real light bulb kind of went off. Even though I knew what I was looking at, it was one of the first times I testified in a homicide trial using laser scan data. But it's like I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was talking about. I knew how good it was. But it's like the light bulb went off, even on something that simple as to, aha, you know, I got them because I had data that they couldn't refute. And when you have data they can't refute, it's powerful. Because a lot of times, if you have like a slam dunk case, which anything could still go wrong, when the defense attorney starts tacking little mini things and they're putting a lot of weight on these miniature things, we kind of know it's like, okay, we have a good case if that's what they're going after us on. And then when you can just you shut one of those arguments down about a distance or whatever, it is just it's powerful. And that's always kind of stuck out with me early on as simple as that sounds. I know it's not some wow factor, um, but it's like it clicked. It clicked for me. I was like, okay, I really see even on the small level, and then how further down the road we can take this with other things. Working shootings and showing angles, where a suspect was on a couple of cases, being able to scan in trajectory rods and then putting in the software and pulling that 5-degree cone of error out. We had another case that kind of sticks out, and I'll kind of stop with that. Um, we had an officer involved shooting um, in our county, and the county detectives had worked the case, and two officers fired. They didn't kill the suspect, but they shot him and stopped him. But one officer only fired one round, and he could not remember where he was standing. There was a fire engine there on the scene. He couldn't remember if he was standing in front of it or in the middle of it in that little open spot. And so we put trajectory rods up and scanned it, and I was able to bring it back and tell him, hey, buddy, you were standing right in the middle of that fire engine. It helped. It helped. It wasn't. It was a good shoot from the get go, but it was help. It helped us finish the answer. Um, with with him on that, it helped us finish the answer of where were you, and we were able to show that, and that was still early on. Um, and so those couple things just kind of stick out as while they may not be huge, just how important this is, or because we couldn't have known these things otherwise.
So it really brings it back to the forensic science when you talk about anyone who's spent any time at all in a courtroom. And sometimes it seems like whoever is the better storyteller, that's the way the case is going to go. Now you can bring it back to, well, this is what the data says. This is definitive. This is forensic science. And that is so important to getting to the truth. And it's not just about the better story, it really is about what is the data telling us.
Yeah, exactly. It is all about the truth. I used to have a saying, and I still say that to this day. When we would train new people coming into the crime scene about how to fingerprint something, I would always tell them, I do not care. Like if I was looking at my laptop here, I do not care whose fingerprint it is on the laptop. I can't care. I can't, suspect. I can't care whose it is. My job is to find it, process it properly, document it, collect it properly, and get it admissible for court. I don't care whose it is. That's up for somebody else to interpret. Let them interpret what that fingerprint means. My job is to find it, document it, collect it, preserve it, and get it entered into court correctly, because that's the science behind it. And the same way with working, crime scenes with laser scan data. It Evidence has to speak for what it is, whether it's where that helps your case as a law enforcement officer or whether it hurts your case. It is what it is. Evidence is kind of neutral. It just says what it is. That's my wording, and I apologize. I'm offending anyone in our crime scene community, but yeah, I call it all. It is what it is. You collect it, you document it, but if you don't do it properly, then you got an issue. And so being able to have that accurate, undisputable data, well, the officer's car was it wasn't 20 feet away from the suspect's car; it was 10 feet. No, boop, here's my line, bam, it's 20 feet 6 inches, or 20 feet 6 and a quarter inches. Because we can get that specific. It's unrefutable. And so that's what I love about it. It tells its story, and doing walkthroughs in a scene are great. And where we're at now with our true reviewer and how anybody can do their own walkthrough and show that data, it is just it's amazing to me where we're at.
You really have the opportunity to put yourself in the scene, even though you've already cleared that crime scene. Now you're back in your office, and now you can still put yourself back in that scene. You can do a better job of investigating what happened. You can share that data with anyone else who needs to investigate, and then the jurors in the courtroom, or the judge. So you have a much better opportunity to allow people to immerse themselves in that scene. And again, it's all about getting to the truth. Now, when you first started laser scanning, Daryl, obviously, Leica Geosystems is a leader in laser scanning technology. We've been in this for a really long time. Now there are a bunch of other technologies available. There's a bunch of different manufacturers. There's a lot more choice. How can someone in the crime scene investigation community go about evaluating technology to know that they're getting the best that's out there?
Well, a couple things. Number one, when you're looking at this type of technology, you always want to see, and a lot of times as a sales guy, I almost get caught up in the process of things, and you have to stop and go, no, what is your end product? What does your end product look like? You need to start from there. What does your end product look like? What's it going to look like? We invest this money and this time in this technology. What's at the end of the day, what's it going to give us? Our scanners are cool, they're fast, they're easy to use, and that's great. But at the end of the day, it boils down to, what do I have as a deliverable? So you start looking what deliverables are there. But what I always tell people when evaluating, because not everybody does this, I won't list any agencies by name. I can list several. You know, when they're evaluating technology, and you have company A, company B, company C, company D out there, put them through the same paces. So often we'll see, whoever gets there first, maybe company A reaches out to an agency first, and they get all excited about it. And then, they want to get their stuff, but they don't take the time. Well, what does company B and C have? Let me do a straight comparison. And so what I tell people is, whenever you're doing stuff like this, have an agency out, have a company out, have them scan an area as an example, and then have company B come out and scan the exact same area. Have company C come out and scan the exact same area. That way, you're comparing everything one to one, so to speak. Evaluate on time, the process, how hard it was, what your deliverable looks like, how long it took you to get to that point. What does your deliverable look like? Is do a straight comparison across the board. Run everybody through the ringers. I went through one. I won't say the agency, but they had some cars set up. They had paint marks on the ground. They said, scan from here, 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 and here. Yeah, it may not have been how I would have scanned it if I was working that scene, but they said scan from here, 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 and here, because we had company A, B, and C come out and scan from here, 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 and here. That way, they're comparing everything as evenly as they can. So the bottom line will be, do that even comparison. Don't just look at one and do it one way, then have somebody else come out and do it differently, because you're not going to get a true comparison, or as close to a true comparison as you can get. But have everybody do the same thing. Put a timer on them, look at your end results, see what kind of deliverable they can give you, how quick they can give you, how accurate it is, what it looks like. It's just compare everything equally. That's probably one of the biggest things when you're looking at technology and you're looking at different companies, and go with what you like best. You know, whatever that answer may be for you, but do an equal comparison. Have them scan the same things. If you're talking about laser scanners, scan the same thing. Look at how easy it was, how long it took, how quick you were able to get to the deliverable, what that deliverable was. And I think if you put everybody through those same paces, I think you get a really good idea of each manufacturer, what they have, what it's going to take to get a result that you're going to need for your agency. And it gives a really, really, really good comparison, because a lot of agencies don't do that. And I understand, because you kind of get caught up into the one that's in front of you. It's so cool, it's great, it's awesome. Um, and you get kind of hung up on that, and you don't. A lot of times we don't. It's human nature. We don't want to take a step back and go, "Well, what about somebody else? How do they compare?" Um, Sometimes we just get so excited about the one that's in front of us at the moment. That's just what we wind up going with, when there may have been a better option. And so, in a very long nutshell, that's kind of my advice on evaluating this technology: is look at more than one manufacturer, look at them across the board, and put them through the same paces.
That makes a lot of sense. And it probably applies to any technology as well, not just laser scanning, because I think it's easy to get focused on laser scanning, but there are so many other technologies that can be used in law enforcement now. When you talk about measuring at a scene, I mean, now we have GPS that you can do imaging with, that you can tilt the pole, right? There's total stations with a prism pole that you can tilt and that automatically captures its height. Just all different kinds of technology. But really, until you get your hands on that technology yourself and you compare it apples to apples with what else is out there, that's the only way to make a fair comparison.
That
Daryl,
is the
you've been with Leica Geosystems for a little while now. What is it about Leica Geosystems that you believe in, that you feel brings the best to the law enforcement community?
Well, I always like to start this with a story, if I may. Back whenever we first purchased our laser scanners, um, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation had also purchased Leica laser scanners at the same time. They had their training scheduled, and my sales rep at the time said, "Hey, go down with there and get some free event, ahead of your normal training schedule. Go get some training with them." And so I did. I came back, and so I was using our laser scanner, just kind of trying it out before our scheduled training, as our department. And the Saturday before a Monday that we had training, we had one of our police officers killed in the line of duty. Um, and it was a very long, complicated scene, indoors, outdoors, block and a half long. Very windy that day, so we had some evidence blowing around. And so I was laser scanning with our scanners that we had at the time, and we get into it a little bit. And we go, "Oh, wait a minute, we were supposed to have training on Monday with Leica. We need to call them and tell them cancel, because we were going to be our just about our entire crime scene unit was going to be tied up for at least 2 weeks working this case. Um, we just would not have any time for the training." And so we called Leica and said, "Listen, we know you're supposed to come out, blah 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 blah." We kind of told them some of the complications we were having, because I was brand new to laser scanning and it was a little more difficult back then. Um, and our sales rep said, "Well, let me call you back." And I said, "Well, you can call me back all you want, but we're still not training Monday." He said, "No, just let me call you back." And so about an hour later, he called us back and said, "Listen, our trainer was already going to fly out tomorrow. You've told me about the problems you're having because of the scene, how big it is, windy, indoors, outdoors. And for a new laser scanner back in that time, it was a little more difficult. So um, he said, hey, we're going to have our trainer fly out anyway and help you put all that scan data together." And so we went back and forth. So a trainer came out on Sunday, stayed Monday, and stayed through Tuesday afternoon. So they, Leica paid for her salary, her plane ticket, her rental car, her hotel, all her food for all that time, and then she flew back home into Texas at the time, and helped me get all that data together, because it was, take the emotional side of it away. It was just really overwhelming, that scene. Um, and then he said, "Listen, we're still going to give you all the days of training you asked for. We're kind of doing this for free, because it's that important." that you get it right. From that day, I've been a Leica fan because they treat. I was just a customer, and they treated me so well as a customer. And I've tried to carry that forward. Now, luckily, those types of situations don't happen every day. Um, thank God they don't. But I try to extend that same courtesy to our customers as much as we possibly can, the way I was treated. And I've gone out and helped customers just kind of on the cuff, go out and visit them, not trying to sell them anything. It's just, I know you have some issues. How can I come back out and help? Or maybe do a little interim training of some new people. Or if they call me with issues, I had a call this morning. A guy had an issue and we were walking through it and got it fixed. Had 3 days ago, somebody had an issue. It was their computer, but we worked around it. Um, extending that that level of service to somebody who needs it, because law enforcement, um, they're different. They're a different animal than a lot of other of our like us clients. And when they need help, they need help. Um, Little things come up. Maybe they didn't do something quite right, or they're brand new to it, or they had somebody new come in a unit and they didn't, so they're trying to train somebody new and they maybe miss a step. Things like that happen. It's just human nature. But the way Leica treated me as a customer, they won me over. They weren't trying to, you know, hire me or anything like that. They were just, I was their customer. I was a brand new customer. And they took such good care of me. I could call them up and give them suggestions, and I saw my suggestions come out in the new version of software. So having that level of support, somebody I could call, talk to, that's what I try to be to our customers. I always tell them, you have a problem, day or night, whether it's 2 a.m., doesn't matter. Call me, let me know. I'll do whatever I can to get your problem solved. Yes, sometimes we have to turn them over to next level support, but I don't get that many of those, emergency calls every once in a while, because humans are humans and we forget to do little things. But that's why I like to me. Number one, our instruments are easy to use. They're accurate, and the level of customer support that I receive, that I try to give to our customers, um, I think sets us apart from some other companies out there. I kind of hear back, and we always hear through the grapevine, company A did this, company B did that, or didn't do this, or didn't do that. And I've even tried to help some of their customers, because at the end of the day, whether somebody has Leica equipment, which I pray they do, hope they do, um, or they have another company's equipment, at the end of the day, my goal is to help put the bad guy in jail, the true bad guy, no matter who that is. Let's get him in jail. Let's get everything documented properly to present in court. Because if we don't, we get one shot at this as crime. It's not like we can go back, a week later and rescan a crime scene because we didn't do something right. Crime scene people, they get one shot. And if you don't get it right the first time, you could lose out. And so my goal is to help crime scene. I've helped people with other equipment, spent a couple hours with them, just because I want them to be able to get it done right. Because I want, at the end of the day, the bad guy to go to jail. And if I don't help anybody I can, I feel like I'm not doing my job. Um, I know my role is not really support, but I support every customer that I have, um, because I know of no other way to be. I know of no way but to be totally honest. Because as a police officer, you get caught lying one time, your credibility shot, and you're gonna, we've seen officers not allowed in court anymore. And so I'm as honest as I can be, and I try to be as helpful as I can be to um, our customers, because I've been there. I know what it's like. Yeah, I've been out there when it's 95 degrees, you're sweating crazy, and you're trying to do these scans right, and you forget to do something that doesn't go quite right, or you get back and you're trying to put scans together, and maybe you didn't do something right on the scene, or whatever the case may be. Um, I know what it's like because I've been there, and I don't want people to have to struggle. I tell clients all the time. So if you ever have a problem, don't hesitate to call. Let us know. And most of the time, it's minor issues where they forgot to tick a button here, tick a button there. It's always minor, and usually most stuff we can take care of real quick, because that's just the nature of technology and computers. Um, but that's it with Leica. Is I firmly believe we have the best equipment out there. I believe we have the easiest to use equipment out there, and we're here after the sale. We're here for you to help, because if you go to court and you didn't do something right because you didn't ask for help, or if I didn't help you, and it winds up making us look bad too. And so I want the bad guy to go to jail. I want our equipment like looking being looked at for what it is: accurate, precise, easy to use, wonderful equipment that kind of takes it to that next level, that where it needs to be.
The technology absolutely matters, the innovation matters, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the people. And we have people like you, Daryl, who have done that job. You know what's involved. All of our public safety team, as a matter of fact, they've done the work. They know what's involved, and so they're willing to help and to walk alongside. It's not, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And so I wonder if, in your role now as a technology advisor, as a guide to professionals, if you encounter any misconceptions about technology, because technology is necessary. We're in a world now where you have to use technology to get to that end result, to be able to prove the truth of what happened. But I wonder if there are any misconceptions within the law enforcement community about what technology they need or what technology is capable of.
I think a lot of it's just lack of knowledge. They don't know what's out there. Just like I didn't when I was in a crime scene, I didn't know unless I came across it, or thought of an idea, or heard somebody else mention an idea and I started researching it. A lot of it's just like they don't know what's out there. Um, they don't know what it can do until they're shown. It's just like anything. You don't know how to do it until somebody shows you how to do it. You don't know X is out there. Just like little nuances in Chrome browser. They just come out with a new filter where you can kind of put all. If I had ten pages open, I could click a button and it could all be kind of become one page where I can just click on the link. I didn't know that option was available till somebody showed me. So it's all about. I think most of it's about knowledge, knowing what's out there. And once you learn what's out there, a lot of there are some misconceptions um, maybe how it's used, when you first go when you especially when you first go into somebody who hasn't seen laser scanning, understand some of the concepts. There may be some misconceptions about, oh, you just set it up, do one scan, and you have everything. Well, it's like, well, no, it's line of sight, and so you have to do several scans, because just like a camera, just like your eyes, there's some line of sight issues. There's some minor things like that, but with technology, I think the biggest thing is just not knowing what's out there, hence not knowing what it can provide, what type of deliverable that this technology, whether it be laser scanning, whether it be, you know, GPS, TPS, whether it be something on the fingerprint side, whether it's DNA side, whatever, you don't know if it's out there, so you don't know what it can deliver. Um, and what's amazing to me, and what I always love, is when I go to an agency who hasn't seen laser scanning before, and then we go out. I show them what an end result's going to look like, but then we go outside and we do some scans in their parking lot, and then we bring that data in. You go out and do 3 or 4 scans, bring it in. So in under an hour, I've got some scans of the front of their building, and they're able to actually measure. And they did most of the scans themselves, because it's that easy. Just seeing the wow in their eyes is really cool. But getting them the knowledge of what's out there, and not only is this a cool instrument, here's what it can deliver. Getting that knowledge out there, and so more than a misconception, I would say is probably just a lack of knowledge, because I didn't know until somebody brought it to my attention about laser scanning back in 2010. I didn't, yeah, it was kind of next level stuff I really didn't think about. So lack of knowledge, and maybe sometimes another thing I will say that comes up a lot, um, is when you do these scans, uh, some people ask, excuse me, I've had several people ask, well, does it do all the measurements for you? Then I have to explain, well, if we just did one scan, and one scan only, it would take the rest of your life to make every measurement possible in just that one scan. There are so many, there's millions of points here. You could measure between all of them. And then they go, oh, okay, I get it. We just make our own. So there are a few little misconceptions with that. And but otherwise, I would say it's mainly just not knowing what's out there. Like, I don't know everything that's out there. on the crime scene side now because I'm not as heavy into that research. And I'll hear something go, "Oh wow, that's cool. We can do that now." And so I think it's just lack of knowledge is one of the biggest things.
Sure. And so working with an organization like Leica, having someone like you, Daryl, to show them what's possible with technology, I mean, that can be key because that could really open their eyes to what they might be able to do. And then I wonder if the next question you get is, how much does it cost? Because obviously budget is a concern. I mean, things in agency world, they might have some constraints on how much money they can spend, and we talked earlier about funding when it comes to implementing standards and just how much time and resources, and I would assume that that's the same case with technology, that cost is a concern. And I'm sure you encountered that when you were in the crime scene investigation world. What advice would you have for someone who is that technology champion? They see the potential with technology. They know their agency or their department needs it, and they're hung up on the cost and the funding.
Well, that's always the issue. We mentioned kind of early on some the issue is funding, but there are different ways to look at this. Some of the ways that I see people buying. Lots of times it comes down to the end of a fiscal year for a police department, and they've tried to save and skimp during the year, and they have some money left over. A lot of times we get people on that. A lot of the times they will purchase through like asset forfeiture because that usually rolls into like narcotics funds, and God forbid there's a shooting involving narcotics, you know, illegal drugs. That happens all the time. And so you can use those funds for like one-time purchases of equipment that's going to help you solve those cases. And laser scanning can definitely help solve and show those cases. There's grants out there. The Department of Justice has a lot of grants. The Paul Coverdale grant is one of the biggest grants out there. It's strictly a technology grant that the government has. Yes, it's a little bit of a pain to fill out the paperwork, but it's well worth. I've always said for years and years, a really good grant writer is at a police department is worth 10 times their salary every year, if not a whole lot more. Um, and so a lot of times the officers are tasked to write a grant and they hadn't had the training. But grants are a good thing. Leica has financing options available to where maybe they only have a certain amount this year that they could put for it. Well, if you can budget that same amount over 2 or 3 years, you can just make it to like a 3 or 4 year payment plan. At the end of those 4 years, the equipment's yours, or you can trade it back in for the newest, and latest, and greatest thing out there. And so there's options available. Um, because we understand that. We understand how. I work with budgets. When I was a sergeant, I mean, I probably filled out more purchase requests than anybody in the department. It felt like, um, just because I had so much stuff I had to buy. I get budgets. If you can stretch it out over 3 or 4 years, with some of our opportunities on financing, it's a great thing to do. Great, one of our partners is Great America. They finance stuff through police departments, sheriff's departments, public safety agencies all across the country every day, all day long. That's one of their, they do a lot of that. And so there's more than one option. And in laser scanning is a lot cheaper. Now it's still expensive because to make this stuff is not cheap. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot cheaper than it used to be. I mean, you used to have to spend $150,000 minimum to get into a laser scanning program, and we're a lot less than that now. Yes, you could definitely spend that and add on this and add on that and get a lot more than that. But to get, for these agencies that have smaller budgets, we have options available. We have scanners that are available that you can get into that and really have great quality data, and kind of get into that world, and something, and you can build from that. So there are so many different ways to get it, and I always talk with people, and I kind of rehash the same things. Look at end of year funding, look at asset forfeiture, look at grants, look at our financing available where you can stretch those out over 3 or 4 years. And each situation is different, but those options are available. A lot of it depends on timing. I've always said that back whenever Chattanooga we bought 2 full systems. We spent a lot of money back in the day, and it wasn't because I was that great of a salesman within our organization. It was because we happened to hit perfect timing. It wasn't Daryl being great. It was Daryl being lucky and having people above him that were really pushing. Thank you, Chiefs. You know who you are. Um, and but there was some stuff going on with the city at the time where we just hit that niche just right. Um, and so there's different ways, and scanning is, like I say, is crime crash pre-deployment, but you can also, a chief scanning his building and then taking that data with our free viewer and be able to go to conferences and show off his department, with that free viewer, a little fly through video or whatever, and kind of, you know, there's so many different ways that this benefits, obviously for crime and crash and pre-deployment and bomb post blast, pre-deployment for stuff always comes to mind, but there's also other ways that this can benefit a department outside of that normal realm. It's almost like your mind can, the limits are your mind and what laser scanning technology can do for you, what it can present. Um, there's so many things I think of now I would love to go scan that I would probably be arrested if I tried to go scan, but it would be so cool to scan it. I still have some things on my bucket list. I was able to actually scan the HL Hunley a few years ago, the Confederate submarine that was sunk back. It was the first submarine to ever take down a battleship or ship in wartime that the University of Clemson has in North Charleston. That was amazing. So I get to do these cool things. There's so many things outside of the realm within an agency's area. When I go to present, I always ask the agency, what is something in this area that when you see this, this is X city, you know, that this is Chattanooga when you see this. Well, let's go scan it. Well, what a great way to show. And I can leave you with the data here free, whether you buy our stuff or not. And so I do get excited about it, about all the things, because there's so many things I still would like to scan, like to do. Um, but there's so many ways to get to that point. There's several different ways to get to that point, with financing and grants and, special situations that let's have a talk. I'll be happy to have that talk with you and work with you and you find what that niche is going to be. Find that little slice, or okay, we can get in it this way, and talk with people about it. Help figure it out. We're not just somebody sitting there beating your head. Hey, buy our crap. It's no. Let me help you, because once again, I go back to at the end of the day, I want to help you put the bad guy in jail. That's the bottom line, but it has to be done right, and this equipment helps you do it accurately, precisely, in the right way.
Well, and you hit on something as you were talking just then. And you were obviously the technology champion in your department, but there was a chain of command. There was a bureaucracy in play, and everyone had to buy into the idea. And what you're talking about, Daryl, is you can take this technology, you can basically use it to sell itself because you can show what it's capable of. You can show that police chief, you can show that community meeting, wherever you happen to be, whoever you have to convince, you can actually use the technology to do that. And it becomes a tool in and of itself to help compel the department to help move that technology forward. So that's
Yeah,
an interesting approach.
yeah, it is. I mean, there's nothing like a mayor of a city. I'm going to copy a former captain and guy who's actually still my best friend. There's nothing like a mayor being able to take some kind of visual when he's going somewhere to tout. Look at my city. You know, and he's showing some laser scan data that shows off. Oh wow, that's cool. You've got laser scan data of the mayor's office or city hall or the big statue in the middle of town. It's like it almost gets people over that initial hump of what is this? Oh, well, what can it do to crime scenes? These are the officer of all shootings. What can it do there? It's like, oh, it starts to open up the mind as to what this can do. And I mean, that's the way I was. It started opening up my mind as what can we actually do with this stuff? You know, and so we had good buy-in from the bureaucracy. I think those guys, they were, I wouldn't have my job if it wasn't for with Leica if it wasn't for one of the chiefs, because he initially was the guy who sought it out and said, "Hey, what about this?" And he was a big champion, and he's still a chief of police close by, um, and so I'm very thankful for that. But it's not always going to start there. It usually starts ground level, and you got to have those selling points to push up, and let us help you get those selling points, because it's not we're not making up stuff. We can go out and scan and show, here's the data, you have it, you go show to the chief or bring him in and I'll show him, and you can tell him you just scanned it yourself. But it's really showing them what it can do for them and what it can be, and it just encompasses so many levels. I could sit here and just go on and on and on. I'm excited. I've always been excited about this technology.
It's so fun to see your excitement. You were fortunate that you had people who believed in what you were trying to put forward. You were that technology champion for someone who is the technology champion within their department, and they're dealing with the bureaucracy, they're dealing with the politics, they're hitting that red tape. Do you have any guidance for that person?
Kind of basically what we just went over is making sure the people that they're talking with their chain of command, whether it be a sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, chief, deputy chief, whomever, um, letting them know, letting them see for themselves what it can do for them. I always tell people, we have our free viewer that you can view our data on. When I go and I scan in a demo type setting, I always try to scan something that's relevant for them. Not always applicable, but we always try to scan something that's relevant. And I say, give our free viewer to the decision maker. Put this data on their computer. It's free, not going to hurt your computer. You can have it whether you speak to me again or not. It's yours. But show them what it can do, how it's going to help them, how it's going to help them in the long run. And one of the very big kickers is officer involved shootings, OIS. That has become such a hot item topic over the last several years, obviously for all kinds of reasons, good and bad. There's nothing like being able to show that data as it was without human interpretation. Is like it is what it is. Um, what I have found is, by far, and I think this should be obvious, most officer involved shootings probably, I don't know the percentages, but I know it's a very high percentage, or what we call good shoots. I mean, the officer was justified in doing what he or she had to do. So, um, having that data to back that up, being able to show distances and angles and views. I mean, gosh, we can scan a scene and put a camera inside the patrol officer's car and kind of have that viewpoint back to the scene from what he saw when he pulled up. So these things we can show, and it backs up the other evidence on the scene, the officer's story, maybe witnesses' stories, or refutes a witness. Things like witness perspectives. We can show where a witness says they were. We can put a camera there and go, you couldn't have seen what you said you saw from here because this was in the way. This tree was in the way. A truck was in the way. Or, yes, you could have seen that. So being able to show those things, how it's going to help them as a department, how it's going to help their cases, how it could actually, we even had some departments across the country, once they showed the point cloud data to the defense attorney, they're like, okay, we'll plead. That's happened just from looking at point cloud data. It doesn't happen every case, obviously, but we've had that happen. So being able to show them what it can do for them as a department with their cases, save litigation, because now we have accurate data showing exactly what that scene was like. I mean, how much money are agencies in cities and counties having to spend on litigation because there's a claim against an officer? But when you have this type of evidence to show, well, no, it couldn't have happened that way because of this. How much money are you now saving on litigation? Things like that are really what drives it home for really people high up in the food chain in a department.
You have mentioned the application of the data, and you talked about how immersive everything is. There are some changes that have happened just within the last few years on the software side that make it that much more immersive. It sounds like what you're most excited about is where everything's going in terms of how that data can be used. I mean, obviously, changes have happened in the hardware side and the laser scanning side and GPS and TPS and all of those things. But really, it sounds like the most exciting piece looking forward is what we can do with the data and applying that.
Oh yes, we're already touching the surface of virtual reality. As a matter of fact, our TrueView viewer, if you have the right setup, you can actually put on the 3D goggles and be in virtual reality within the point cloud. Now we're not there yet as an industry, as far as being able to set that up for court and making it court applicable yet. Now I can imagine 12 jurors walking around with VR headsets bumping into each other in a jury room. Um, but But I think VR is one of the things I'm really interested in where we're going. Um, right now, everybody has to have a headset, yada yada yada. I'm really interested in seeing where that's going to go. We're only scratching the surface as an industry in what that can do. And I've seen some really cool stuff. I'm not going to mention companies out there that are taking that to the next level, especially on the military side. And so I've had a little glimpse into where we could be going with this. Um, and I'm really excited about seeing everything taking that leap with where I see the next level, even what's beyond what glimpses I've had. Because it is excuse me, amazing what VR can do now, and talk about putting you in an environment, putting you in a scene. I've seen the what it can do, um, and I'm also my mind just wonders what is that next level, um, and so that's probably my biggest excitement as far as in the product is where VR is going to take us. Um, and how AI may play into that, which I know AI is kind of a scary term. I have no idea. I haven't heard anything about what AI is doing with this, but AI is the big buzz, two letters right now, worldwide. Everybody's worried to death. They think the Terminator's coming; they're going to take over, and but I'm really interested to see how VR, maybe some AI mixed in, where that's going to lead us. I will probably be an old man sitting around gum and grits, drinking coffee, going, "Where's Mama? Where's Mama?" Before that comes out to where it's really viable. But I I can't help but be excited about where that's going because I think it's going to wind up being something that is mind blowingly cool. That's
One
probably the best
again,
way to put it.
yeah, and again, beyond the cool factor is the practicality of being able to tell that story and to know that it is scientifically accurate, to know that it meets forensic standards. And that's where making sure that you have the right data going into all of those end products, going into that virtual reality, going into whatever you're using to show the jury or the judge, you have to make sure that you're using the right technology at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. When I say cool, I mean it encompasses that world of accuracy. Is there? That's my shortened version because that's what I'm thinking. Because I've seen something like, okay, being in a scene where I know this data is accurate, and now I can just kind of move around a corner. Oh my gosh, now I can see it. When I say cool, that's what I mean. Is all the action, everything you said, you put it more eloquently than I did, but that's what I mean when I say cool because having taken that the detail of accuracy we have now and putting it to where you're even now you can really even see it better from a human perspective of what that may have looked like at that time to really give somebody some insight because let's face it, these officers are making split second decisions and it's easy to Monday morning quarterback them, but when you put yourself in their position and you go, oh my god, that's what he was looking at, it's different from hearing a story and then now you can see this is what he saw. That car was coming right at him. He didn't, the officer didn't know that the guy was fixing to turn left and veer from him, but he was right. I mean, I can come up with a million scenarios, but being able to see that now and maybe down the road, we could do it now in our point cloud data, but maybe even thinking down the road of a more virtual environment um, with that level of because if you don't have the accuracy to begin with, everything you're looking at is crap. Throw it out. You can't use it because it's not accurate. And you to go in a courtroom, you have to have that repeatability. You have to have that accuracy there that has been scientifically proven to be accurate. And so I just had to say that to kind of encompass my word cool, meant all of what you so eloquently said. But that's where, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of being on a scene, being able to move around and see what an officer saw or a suspect saw or a witness saw at the time because everything I'm looking at is accurate and it's just going to get more accurate and it's going to get better.
Yeah, it's so, so powerful. Now, from the sounds of things, Daryl, it sounds like you go out and you laser scan to decompress. I don't know, maybe that's the case, but you have so much energy and passion about it. But I see a guitar over your shoulder, so you must tinker around with some music.
I do a little bit. I've played and tinkered ever since gosh, uh 13, 14 years old. Now you would think playing that long, hey, you ought to be pretty good by now. Well, no. I just tinker around for me. I have several guitars. Here at the house that I love playing acoustic, bass, electric. I've even got a little keyboard I like to tinker on. Yeah, if I was as good at any of those instruments as you would think one should be after having them that long, I could go out and have a concert tomorrow. But um, I just like playing for me. I don't play for anybody else. I play for my enjoyment, my fun, and my sanity. Um, we all have those things we do decompress, and scanning some cool things is one of them. But since I can't always go out and scan something cool, I have my guitars here. Um, I love playing. I love trying to learn to play songs that I like. Everything from, oh my goodness, everything from Brooks and Dunn to Motley Crue. I mean, I love playing it. Not well, but I love playing it and trying to you know convincing myself it sounds good. But I love instruments. I love musical instruments. It's kind of in my family a little bit, through my uncles, through my grandmother, and so I like to keep my hands on it because it kind of makes my mind transition into a different place that I like. Where when I'm doing that and trying to do it, it's hard for me to think of anything else, because I'm having to concentrate on what I'm doing. And when you hit a couple notes that just tune right, or you come up with a couple of chords that just go together just right, or you finally learn that little bit of a lick you've been trying, you finally get it. It's like, oh, it's so satisfying. Then you want to play it for your family, and they're like, oh, okay, that was nice. You're like, okay, y'all don't get it like I do. So it's a fun outlet for me. I've really enjoyed music playing. In the last probably few years, I've kind of gotten back more into it because I've kind of got away from it for a while, but I've got back into it and enjoy it. And it's just fun when you can play something that you hear on the radio, and you may not play it as well, but at least somebody knows what you're playing. That is just, oh, that's cool. I can play what I hear, or play the song on my phone or through a speaker, and then play along with it. That is so fun and so enjoyable, so satisfying to me. It's like I can play what I'm hearing on the radio. May not be as good, may not be exactly the same, but I can play it to where you know what it is. That is so fun. It's such a calming release for me to be able to do that. And the electric guitars, that's for when I'm really ticked off. I crank up the volume because I've got a couple of amps that I have, that can really go loud. And so when the neighbors are ticking me off because they're out making a little too much noise, I crack a window, turn my amp up, and go, "How you like this?" Don't And so it's fun. It's all fun. I really enjoy it. It's a good outlet for me, and I love it. I wish I had more time to do it.
I bet. Well, Daryl, thank you so much. This has been such a fun interview. I hope I get to hear you play sometime. But in the meantime, it has been just fantastic learning about your background and what you're doing for the public safety community right now. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it, and you know, I love scanning. I love what we do. I love our company, um, and it's just I don't know. I've always been excited about laser scanning, so it just. I apologize if I was a little animated a time or two. It's just I enjoy it and love it.
Don't apologize. It's so much fun to see how passionate you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Be sure to check out the description for additional resources on this topic. If you enjoyed this content, give us a like. If you'd like to see more of this content, be sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Tech Insider.